I never expected a simple family dinner to shatter my world. As I walked into my childhood home, excitement about my sister Hannah's wedding bubbled inside me. But then my father Gordon looked me straight in the eye and said, "The best gift is your absence." His words knocked the wind out of me. My mother nodded in agreement. They had no idea I had been secretly paying their mortgage for 3 years after Dad's business failed. Without a word, I walked out, locked the door to the house I legally owned, and called my lawyer. The silence that followed my departure would soon be broken by consequences they never saw coming. The drive back to my apartment was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white as memories from the past 3 years flooded my mind. I remembered the day my father called me, voice breaking, something I had never heard before. "Courtney, I need to talk to you about something important," he had said. It was 3 years ago, during the economic downturn that hit our town particularly hard. Gordon's construction business had been struggling for months. Projects dried up, clients couldn't pay, and banks weren't lending. My parents were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments for the house they had lived in for 30 years, the house where Hannah and I grew up. I had just landed a major promotion at Tech Solutions, becoming regional sales director at 32 years old. My first commission check was substantial, 6 figures that felt unreal in my bank account. When my father explained their situation, I immediately knew what I needed to do. "I can help, Dad," I offered. "Absolutely not," he replied firmly. "We don't take handouts, especially not from our children." His pride was as sturdy as the houses he built, but their financial foundation was crumbling. After 2 sleepless nights, I contacted Jackson Parker, my lawyer and friend from college. "There must be a way to help them without them knowing," I explained to Jackson over lunch. "Actually, there is," he replied. "We can set up an anonymous trust. The payments will appear to come from a banking error in their favor. They'll think the bank miscalculated their payment schedule." And that was how I became the secret owner of my childhood home. Every month for 3 years, I transferred money to the trust, and Jackson's office made the payments. My parents believed they were benefiting from some financial miracle, and I was content knowing they were secure. I never planned to tell them the truth. I just wanted them to be safe, to keep their home, to maintain their dignity. But dignity apparently didn't extend to treating me with respect. Growing up, I was always the black sheep of the family. Despite graduating with honors and securing a 6-figure job before 30, my accomplishments were perpetually overshadowed by Hannah's. She was 2 years younger, but infinitely more celebrated. When she got a B+ on a test, there was ice cream. When I was valedictorian, there was a quiet good job and then conversation about Hannah's latest achievement. I didn't resent Hannah for this. She was a good sister, if somewhat oblivious to the disparity in our parents' affections. She became a kindergarten teacher, which made my parents burst with pride at her noble profession. Meanwhile, my career in tech sales was dismissed as just selling things to people. What my parents never seemed to understand was that I earned more in 1 quarter than Hannah made in 2 years. Not that money was the measure of success, but the fact that they minimized my career while I was literally keeping a roof over their heads was deeply ironic. After ensuring my parents wouldn't lose their home, I maintained a cordial but distant relationship with them. Sunday dinners once a month, obligatory holiday gatherings, the occasional family barbecue. They never asked much about my work or my life. I dated occasionally, but hadn't found anyone who stuck. My parents attributed this to some deficiency in me rather than the simple reality of being focused on my career. I pulled into my apartment complex garage, still reeling from the evening's events. Opening my laptop, I mindlessly scrolled through social media to distract myself. That's when I saw it. Hannah had posted photos of her and my parents at a wedding venue, one of the most exclusive in the state. The caption read, "So blessed that Mom and Dad are giving us the wedding of our dreams. $75,000 of pure magic coming our way." I nearly choked on my coffee. $75,000? My parents didn't have that kind of money. Unless. A quick call to Jackson confirmed my suspicions. "They took out a home equity line of credit 2 weeks ago," he told me. Since the mortgage payments have been steady for 3 years, the bank approved it. They had leveraged the house I was paying for to fund Hannah's extravagant wedding, without even mentioning it to me. And now they wanted me to stay away from this wedding I was unknowingly financing. The irony was almost too much to bear. The first sign that something was off came during the initial wedding planning brunch. Hannah had invited both our parents, her fiancé Tyler, and me to discuss preliminary ideas at a local restaurant. "We're thinking of a spring garden theme," Hannah announced, her eyes bright with excitement. Tyler sat beside her, his arm casually draped around her shoulders. He came from old money, his family owning 3 car dealerships across the state. "That sounds lovely, honey." Our mother Julia beamed. "The Willows venue has those beautiful cherry blossoms in April." "The Willows?" I asked, knowing it was the most expensive wedding venue in our region. "Isn't that booked years in advance?" "They had a cancellation," my father said proudly. "We put down a deposit last week." I nodded slowly, aware now of where that deposit money had really come from. "What do you think about the theme, Courtney?" Hannah asked. "I think it sounds beautiful. Maybe you could incorporate some sustainable elements?" I worked with a client who did a zero-waste wedding, and it was actually more elegant and saved them thousands. The table fell silent. My mother's smile tightened. "We don't need to pinch pennies," my father said dismissively. "This is Hannah's special day." I wasn't suggesting pinching pennies. Just being environmentally conscious, I clarified. "Not everyone is obsessed with appearing wealthy, Courtney," my mother said, with a little laugh that was meant to sting. And it did. Over the following weeks, I was included in various wedding planning activities, though my input was systematically ignored or dismissed. During the cake tasting, I suggested the lemon-raspberry combination, which even the baker agreed was exceptional. "No one wants fruitcake at a wedding," my mother said with a wave of her hand, despite the fact that it wasn't fruitcake at all. "Let's go with the vanilla," Hannah decided, though I noticed her face had lit up at the lemon-raspberry. "It's more traditional." Before the dinner with Tyler's parents, my mother pulled me aside. "Please dress appropriately tonight," she whispered urgently. "Nothing too. You know." I looked down at my standard business casual attire, confused. "What do you mean?" "Just less flamboyant," she said, patting my shoulder. I was wearing a blue button-down shirt and khaki slacks. There was nothing remotely flamboyant about my appearance. But in my mother's eyes, I was always somehow failing to meet an unspoken standard. The dinner with Tyler's parents was a special kind of torture. My father spent the evening regaling them with stories about Hannah's accomplishments, from her first steps to her recent Teacher of the Year nomination. "And what do you do, Courtney?" Tyler's mother asked politely. Before I could answer, my father jumped in. "He works in computers," he said vaguely. "Hannah is the one who really found her calling, though." I sat there, stunned. Works in computers was how you might describe a data entry clerk, not a regional sales director who managed a team of 20 and had closed over $12 million in deals last quarter alone. "I'm actually the regional sales director for Tech Solutions," I clarified. "We provide enterprise software solutions to Fortune 500 companies." "Oh, how interesting," Tyler's mother replied, but my father had already redirected the conversation to Hannah's volunteer work with underprivileged children. The final straw that evening came when my mother mentioned they had invited some family friends to the wedding. "Including Amy," she said, giving me what she probably thought was a sly look. "You two always got along so well." Amy, my ex-girlfriend, who I had dated for 2 years before discovering she was cheating on me with her coworker. The breakup had been devastating, and my family knew this. Yet here was my mother, inviting her to my sister's wedding as a family friend. "Amy and I haven't spoken in 3 years," I said quietly. "Not since I found out she was cheating." "Water under the bridge," my father said dismissively. "Her parents are close friends of ours." As the wedding planning progressed, my father's hostility toward me increased. Any suggestion I made was met with derision. Any offer of help was rebuffed. I began to wonder why they had included me at all. The truth came out during a conversation I overheard between my mother and her sister on the phone. "We have to invite him. He's her brother," my mother was saying. "But honestly, Linda, he's been so difficult about everything, always trying to outshine Hannah with his money and his fancy job. As if selling computer programs is something to brag about." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand clutching the gift I had brought over, a bottle of wine from a vineyard I knew my mother liked. "Tyler's family is so impressive," my mother continued. "I don't want them thinking we raised some show-off who can't stop talking about his success. Courtney needs to understand this is Hannah's time to shine." I set the bottle down silently on the side table and left without announcing my presence. That night, I discovered through Hannah's fiancé's sister's Instagram post that I had been placed at what was clearly the leftover table for the reception. Table 19, in the corner by the kitchen, with my mother's ancient aunt who was half deaf, and some distant cousins who hadn't visited in over a decade. My sister, the bride, had relegated her only brother to the equivalent of wedding Siberia. The pre-wedding dinner was scheduled at my parents' house 6 weeks before the wedding. Hannah, Tyler, both sets of parents, and the wedding planner would be discussing final arrangements. I wasn't initially invited, but Hannah called at the last minute. "Can you come tonight? Tyler's sister can't make it, and we need an even number for dinner." An afterthought. A space filler. But I agreed, because despite everything, I loved my sister. The dinner started pleasantly enough. My mother had prepared her signature pot roast, and the dining room was decorated with sample centerpieces for the wedding tables. I sat quietly, listening as they discussed flower arrangements and photo sessions. "We still need to finalize the bar situation." The wedding planner, a woman named Stephanie with an iPad and a perpetual look of mild anxiety, noted. "We're thinking of just having wine and beer," my father said. "Open bar is so expensive." This was my opportunity to contribute positively. "Actually, I'd be happy to cover the cost of an open bar," I offered. "Consider it my wedding gift to Hannah and Tyler." The table fell silent. Hannah looked uncertainly between me and our parents. "That's very generous, but unnecessary," my father said coldly. "It's not a big deal," I continued, ignoring his tone. "I know a lot of your friends enjoy cocktails, and it would be about $10,000 from what I've researched." My father's face reddened. "We don't need your charity, Courtney. We can handle our daughter's wedding just fine." "It's not charity, Dad. It's a gift for my only sister." "A gift? Or a chance to show off how much money you have?" my mother interjected. I set down my fork, appetite gone. "That's not fair." "What's not fair is you trying to make Hannah's wedding about you," my father said, voice rising. "Everything has to be about Courtney, doesn't it? Your job, your money, your ideas." "When have I ever made anything about me?" I asked incredulously. "When have I ever even been allowed to talk about my achievements in this house without being shut down?" Hannah looked uncomfortable. "Let's just calm down." "No, I want to hear this," I said, years of repressed frustration bubbling to the surface. "When exactly have I made things about me? Was it when I quietly celebrated my promotion alone because you were all too busy with Hannah's teacher appreciation dinner? Or when I bought my first house and you couldn't attend the housewarming because Hannah was in a community theater production?" "You've always been jealous of your sister," my mother said, shaking her head. "Jealous?" I laughed, though there was no humor in it. "I make 4 times what she does. I've traveled to 12 countries. I manage a team of 20 people. What exactly should I be jealous of?" "There you go again. Flaunting your money," my father spat. "As if that's what matters in life." "It seemed to matter when you needed help with the mortgage," I said without thinking. The room went still. "What are you talking about?" my father asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I had never planned to reveal my financial support, but in that moment, the hypocrisy was too much to bear. 3 years ago, when your business was failing and you were about to lose this house, who do you think has been paying the mortgage?" My father stood up, chair scraping loudly against the floor. "That's a lie. The bank restructured our loan. We got a letter." "There was no restructuring, Dad. I've been making the payments through a trust. I own this house." "How dare you?" my mother gasped. "How dare you come in here and make up stories to embarrass us in front of Tyler's family?" Hannah was staring at me, her face a mixture of confusion and anger. Tyler looked deeply uncomfortable, as did his parents. "It's not a story," I said quietly. "Call the bank if you don't believe me." "I think you should leave," my father said, pointing to the door. "You've done enough damage tonight." I looked around the table at their faces, a mixture of disbelief, anger, and embarrassment. No one, not even Hannah, was willing to consider that I might be telling the truth. "Fine," I said, standing up. "But before I go, I want to know why my own sister put me at table 19 with people she doesn't even speak to. Why am I being treated like an unwelcome obligation at a wedding I'm apparently financing without my knowledge?" Hannah at least had the grace to look ashamed. The seating chart was complicated. We had to consider many factors. "Right," I nodded. Factors like pretending your successful brother doesn't exist because he might outshine you for once? That's enough, my father roared. You've always tried to overshadow your sister's moments with your so-called success. Well, here's the truth, Courtney. If you can't be supportive without making everything about you, then maybe the best gift you could give your sister is your absence. The words hit me like a physical blow. Years of dismissal and minimization crystallized in that single statement. I looked around the room one last time, searching for any ally, any sign that someone would stand up for me. There was none. You know what? You're right, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. The best gift I can give is my absence. Starting right now. I walked out of the dining room, through the front hallway, and out the door. As I left, I pulled out my keys and deliberately locked the deadbolt I'd had installed last year, another improvement to the house they didn't know I owned. In my car, I pulled out my phone and texted Jackson. We need to talk, tonight. Jackson's office was quiet at 8:30 in the evening. The rest of the staff had gone home, but he was waiting for me with a concerned expression and 2 glasses of bourbon. You look like you've had one hell of a night, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sank into it gratefully and took a long sip of bourbon before recounting the disastrous dinner. Jackson listened without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled as I spoke. So they have no idea you've been paying the mortgage all this time? He asked when I finished. They didn't believe me when I told them, I replied, running a hand through my hair. They think I made it up to cause drama before the wedding. Jackson pulled a file from his cabinet and spread several documents on the desk. Well, the truth is even more complicated than they realize, he said. After 3 years of payments, you're not just helping with the mortgage. Legally, you own the house. What? When we set up the trust, you purchased the debt from the bank. The payments you've been making aren't toward their mortgage. They're building your equity. Your parents have essentially been living rent-free in a house that belongs to you. I stared at the documents, the legal language swimming before my eyes. That wasn't my intention. I know, Jackson said gently. You wanted to help them quietly, but now that they've treated you this way, you have options. He outlined them for me. I could continue the arrangement silently. I could transfer ownership to them as a gift, or I could assert my legal rights as the homeowner. What would that mean exactly? I asked. It would mean they would need your permission to continue living there. You could charge them rent, ask them to leave, or sell the property. The thought of evicting my own parents was horrifying, but their words still rang in my ears. The best gift you could give is your absence. I need to think, I said. Of course, Jackson nodded. But there's something else you should know. He pulled another document from the file. When I was confirming the legal details, I discovered something. Your parents took out a home equity line of credit against the property. For Hannah's wedding, I know. Yes, but there's a problem. They didn't have the legal right to do that. The bank made a mistake in processing their application because the payments had been steady. Technically, they've committed fraud, even if they weren't aware of it. I felt sick. What does that mean? It means they've borrowed $75,000 against a property they don't own. If this came to light, they could face serious consequences. I thought about my childhood, the decades of feeling secondary, the constant dismissal of my achievements, and now, this final rejection being told, my absence was preferable to my presence at my own sister's wedding. A wedding being financed through a loan against my property without my knowledge. I don't want to hurt them, I said finally. But I can't keep enabling this treatment. There's a middle path, Jackson suggested. I can prepare documentation proving your ownership. We present it to them, explain the situation calmly, and work out an arrangement that acknowledges both your rights and your family relationship. I nodded slowly. And the home equity loan? We can address that too. It's not in your interest to report the fraud, but they need to understand the gravity of what they've done. That night, I barely slept, memories flooding back from throughout my life. The time my father missed my college graduation because Hannah had a minor cold. The Christmas when my mother forgot to display the ornament I'd sent from my business trip to Tokyo. The family photos where I was positioned on the edge, easily croppable. I had spent 35 years trying to earn my place in my own family, and it was never enough. The next morning, I tried one last time to resolve things peacefully. I called Hannah, hoping she might listen where our parents wouldn't. What do you want, Courtney? she answered coldly. Mom and Dad are really upset about last night. I need you to hear me out, I said. What I told you about the house is true. I can prove it. Stop it, she snapped. I don't know why you're trying to ruin my wedding with these lies, but it has to stop. Maybe you are jealous, or maybe you just can't stand not being the center of attention for once. Hannah, please. No, you need to apologize to everyone, especially Tyler's parents. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? More embarrassing than discovering your parents have been lying to you for 3 years? I asked quietly. I'm getting married in 6 weeks, Courtney. Either get on board and be supportive, or stay away like Dad said. She hung up. I sat staring at my phone, a hollow feeling spreading through my chest. I had lost my sister, too. 2 days later, Jackson had prepared all the necessary documentation. He would deliver it personally to my parents, explaining the legal situation and the options going forward. Are you sure you don't want to be present for this? He asked as we reviewed the paperwork in his office. I'm sure, I replied. They won't listen to me. Maybe they'll listen to you. As I watched Jackson drive away with the folder of documents that would change my family forever, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The truth would finally come out, for better or worse. What I didn't expect was the phone call I received 3 hours later. Not from my parents, or from Jackson, but from Tyler, my future brother-in-law. Courtney, we need to talk, he said, his voice tight with tension. My family is considering pulling their portion of the wedding funding. What? Why? Your lawyer just left your parents' house. My parents were there. He paused. Is it true? About the house? Yes, I said simply. Jesus, he muttered. Do you know what this means? The wedding venue, the deposits, everything is up in the air now. Hannah is devastated. A flash of anger shot through me. I'm sorry about the timing, but I didn't create this situation. My parents did. By taking out a loan against my property, and then telling me I'm not welcome at the wedding, I'm unknowingly financing. There was silence on the other end. Then, I had no idea they said that to you. There's a lot you don't know about my relationship with my family, Tyler. He sighed heavily. Look, Hannah is crying in the other room. Your parents are arguing with each other. This whole thing is falling apart. Whatever your issues with them, do you really want to destroy your sister's wedding? The question hit hard. Despite everything, I didn't want to hurt Hannah. But I was tired of being the one who always had to sacrifice, always had to understand, always had to forgive. I don't want to destroy anything, I said finally. But I'm done being treated like I don't matter. After hanging up, I discovered through social media that my parents were telling everyone I was having a mental breakdown and making up stories about owning their house. The narrative was spreading that poor Hannah's disturbed brother was trying to ruin her wedding out of jealousy. The final betrayal came when I received a text from Amy, my ex-girlfriend. Your mom told me you're going through a tough time. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. They were even using my ex to try to manage me. I blocked her number and called Jackson. How did it go? I asked. Not well, he admitted. They refused to believe the documentation at first. Your father accused me of falsifying records. It wasn't until I showed them the original deed transfer that they began to understand. And then? Your father became extremely angry. Your mother cried. They accused you of manipulating them, of setting them up for some kind of revenge. Revenge for what? Decades of being treated like I didn't matter? I explained that you've been helping them for years without asking for anything in return. That seemed to confuse them more than anything. I shook my head, unsurprised. What about the wedding? They're in a difficult position. The home equity loan was secured fraudulently, even if unintentionally. The bank could call it due immediately if they knew the truth. I don't want that, I said quickly. I know. I suggested we could work out an arrangement, but they were too angry to discuss it rationally. I left my card and told them to call when they're ready to talk solutions. I thanked Jackson and ended the call, feeling drained. My phone had been buzzing with messages from extended family members and friends, all of them asking what was wrong with me, why I was trying to hurt my sister, whether I needed help. Not a single person asked for my side of the story. 5 days after Jackson delivered the documents, my parents still hadn't contacted him or me. Through mutual friends, I learned that the wedding venue was threatening to cancel without immediate payment of the remaining balance. Tyler's parents were reconsidering their financial contribution, uncomfortable with the deception they had uncovered. Hannah had taken a week off from teaching, too distraught to face her students. My father had apparently barricaded himself in his workshop, refusing to speak to anyone. My mother was making desperate calls to family members, trying to secure loans to replace the home equity line of credit that was now in question. The situation had exploded beyond anything I had anticipated or wanted. I never meant to derail Hannah's wedding or expose my parents to potential financial ruin. I had simply reached my breaking point after years of dismissal and disrespect. On the 6th day, I received a text from my mother. Family meeting, our house. 7 p.m. tonight. Our house. The phrasing wasn't lost on me. I arrived exactly at 7, parking behind Tyler's car. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My parents sat on one side of the living room, Hannah and Tyler on the other. Tyler's parents were present too, sitting uncomfortably on the love seat. "Thank you for coming," my mother said stiffly as I entered. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect makeup absent. "You said we needed to talk," I replied, taking the lone chair by the fireplace. No one offered a greeting beyond my mother's terse acknowledgement. My father cleared his throat. "Your lawyer friend made some claims last week." "Not claims. Facts," I corrected quietly. "Fine," he conceded, though it clearly pained him. "The documents appear to be legally binding." "They are. What we don't understand," my mother interjected, "is why you would do this. Why would you secretly take over our mortgage and not tell us? What was your endgame here?" The question stunned me. Endgame? You were about to lose your home. I had the means to help. That's all there was to it. And now you're using it against us, my father accused. "I'm not using anything against you," I countered. "I kept this arrangement private for 3 years. The only reason we're having this conversation is because you took out a loan against my property without my knowledge, and then told me I wasn't welcome at the wedding that loan is financing." Hannah spoke up, her voice shaking. "The venue called yesterday. They're giving us until Monday to pay the balance, or they'll cancel and keep our deposit." I looked at my sister, truly seeing her distress for the first time. Whatever issues existed between us, she was still my little sister, and her dream wedding was falling apart. "I'm sorry about that," I said sincerely. "Sorry?" my father scoffed. "You created this mess." Tyler's father, a dignified man with silver temples, leaned forward. "With all due respect, Gordon, from what I understand, Courtney has been quietly supporting your family for years. The current situation arose because you borrowed against a property that wasn't legally yours." My father's face reddened. "We didn't know that. How were we supposed to know our son was secretly plotting behind our backs?" "Plotting?" I repeated incredulously. "I was helping you." "If you were helping," my mother said, "why keep it a secret? Why the elaborate trust arrangement? Normal people don't do that, Courtney." "Normal people thank their children when they help," I shot back. "Normal people don't tell their son that his absence is the best gift he could give." The room fell silent. Tyler's mother looked appalled. "Is that true?" she asked, turning to my parents. "Did you tell your son he shouldn't come to the wedding?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't like that. He was being difficult, trying to take over the wedding planning with his fancy ideas and offers of money. I offered to pay for the open bar," I clarified. "That was it." Hannah was staring at our parents, a new understanding dawning on her face. "You really said that to him?" she asked quietly. "That he shouldn't come to my wedding?" Neither of my parents answered, which was answer enough. Tyler stood up. "This has gone too far. Hannah and I are getting married in 5 weeks. We need to resolve this situation now, without more family damage." "There's a simple solution," I said. "I'll cover the costs for the wedding venue. The home equity loan can be sorted out later." "We don't want your charity," my father began. But Tyler's father cut him off. "Gordon, enough. Your pride is now affecting my son's wedding. Courtney is offering a reasonable solution. There's one condition," I added, looking directly at my parents. "I want the truth. No more stories about me having a mental breakdown or making up lies about the house. Everyone needs to know exactly what happened." My mother looked horrified. "You want us to tell everyone we lost our house and our son had to rescue us? Do you have any idea how humiliating that would be?" About as humiliating as discovering your family has been dismissing and diminishing you your entire life, I replied evenly. About as humiliating as learning. They'd rather you didn't attend a major family event because your very presence makes them uncomfortable. Hannah was crying silently now, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know, she whispered, about any of this. Of course you didn't, I said, softening my tone. They've been managing both of our perceptions for years. My father stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We've done nothing but support both our children. Just because we don't fawn over Courtney's corporate job doesn't mean we don't care. When was the last time you asked me about my work, Dad? When was the last time you congratulated me on a promotion or a major sale? When have you ever introduced me to your friends without immediately pivoting to talk about Hannah? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to provide an example. You told Tyler's parents, I work in computers, I continued. Do you even know what I do? Do you know I manage 20 people? That I closed $12 million in sales last quarter? That I was the youngest regional director in company history? My mother looked genuinely confused. You never told us those things. I tried. Every time I started to share a success, you changed the subject or minimized it. After a while, I stopped trying. The realization seemed to be dawning slowly on my parents' faces. Hannah was looking between us all, pieces of our family dynamic falling into place in a new pattern. All this time, she said slowly, I thought Courtney was distant because he was too busy with his important job, that he didn't have time for family stuff because he didn't care enough. That's what we thought too, my mother admitted. Did you ever consider, I asked quietly, that I stayed away because being here meant being reminded that nothing I did was ever good enough? Tyler's father stood up. I think the four of you need some time to talk privately. We'll step outside. After Tyler's parents left, with Tyler following reluctantly at Hannah's insistence, the four of us sat in uncomfortable silence. Years of unspoken tensions filled the room. I don't understand, my mother finally said. Why would you pay our mortgage secretly if you felt this way about us? Because you're my family, I answered simply. Because despite everything, I love you. Because I had the ability to prevent you from losing your home, and that mattered more than my feelings. And now? My father asked, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. What happens now? It was the first time in my adult life I had seen my father look vulnerable. That depends on all of us, I said. But first, everyone needs to hear the truth about what's been happening. No more lies, no more pretending. The next morning, I received a call from Hannah. Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying. Can we meet somewhere private? She asked. Just you and me? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes, a neutral territory where we had occasionally connected during our adult years when home was too complicated. Hannah looked exhausted when she arrived, dark circles under her eyes, her normally perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She carried a large manila envelope. I've been up all night, she said, without preamble as she slid into the booth across from me, looking through old family photos, reading journals, trying to understand. I waited, letting her gather her thoughts. I found this, she continued, pulling papers from the envelope. It's the mortgage statement for the house. I've never looked at it before, never had reason to, but look at the payment history. She pushed it across the table. The document showed 3 years of perfectly steady payments, never a day late. Dad's construction business was failing during this time, she said. I remember because I loaned them money twice for property taxes. But somehow, the mortgage was always paid. Yes, I confirmed quietly. And this? She pulled out another document. The deed transfer to the trust. Your name is right there, Courtney. You really do own the house. I do. She leaned back, studying my face. Why didn't you ever tell me? Would you have believed me? I asked gently. Or would you have thought I was trying to cause problems, like everyone always assumes? She flinched slightly. I might not have believed you, she admitted. That's what I've been thinking about all night. How easily I've accepted certain narratives about you. It's not your fault, Hannah. We were both shaped by our family dynamic. But I participated in it, she insisted. I let them seat you at table 19. I didn't stand up for you when Dad said those horrible things. I've been so wrapped up in this wedding, in trying to make everything perfect for everyone else, that I didn't see what was happening to my own brother. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen by a member of my family. The relief was overwhelming. "There's more," Hannah continued, pulling out her phone. "I talked to Tyler's parents this morning. They had no idea about any of this. They thought our family was like theirs, loving, supportive, proud of both their children. When I told them everything, they were horrified. "I'm sorry for causing problems with your future in-laws," I said. "Don't you see? You didn't cause the problems. The problems were already there. You just finally stopped covering for them." She took a deep breath. "Tyler and I have made a decision. We're postponing the wedding." "Hannah, no. You don't have to do that. We want to. We're going to have a smaller ceremony, something meaningful and genuine. Not this production that's been built on deception and family dysfunction." "What about the venue? The deposits?" She smiled wryly. "Turns out, when the son of Frank Williams calls the venue personally, they're suddenly very flexible about reschedule fees." Frank Williams, Tyler's father, owner of 3 car dealerships, and apparently a man with significant local influence. "There's something else," Hannah said, her expression growing serious again. "I need to know the truth about how Mom and Dad have treated you. Not just recently, but always." For the next 2 hours, we talked honestly about our childhood, our perceptions, and the family patterns that had shaped both our lives. I shared painful memories I had never voiced aloud to moments of rejection, dismissal, and subtle undermining that had accumulated over decades. Hannah shared her perspective too, her genuine obliviousness to the disparity in our treatment, her confusion when I would withdraw from family events, her hurt at what she had perceived as my indifference to her life and achievements. "I always thought you were just so successful that you couldn't be bothered with our small-town life," she admitted. "That you were embarrassed by us." "Never," I assured her. "I was just trying to protect myself from constantly feeling inadequate." As we talked, a new understanding formed between us, not just of our past, but of how we might move forward. "Mom and Dad have been calling me non-stop," Hannah said. "They're in a panic about the wedding, the house, everything. But for the first time, I'm seeing them clearly. They've been manipulating both of us for years." "What will you tell them?" "The truth. That I know everything now. That I won't participate in excluding or diminishing you anymore." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're my brother, Courtney. My only sibling. I don't want to lose you over their issues." Later that day, I received a surprising call from Tyler. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I had no idea what was really going on in your family. Hannah told me everything." "There's no need to apologize," I assured him. "You were trying to protect Hannah and your wedding." "About that," he continued, "I want you to know the postponement was our idea together. Hannah was in tears when she realized how you've been treated, and I couldn't go through with a wedding that was causing so much pain. I never wanted to disrupt your plans. You didn't. You just forced some long overdue honesty." He paused. "My parents are pretty upset with yours. Not about the money or the wedding, but about how they've treated you. Dad says no parent should ever make one child feel lesser than another." The validation from this relative stranger was unexpectedly powerful. For years, I had wondered if I was imagining things, if I was being overly sensitive or demanding. Hearing an outsider's perspective confirmed what I had always felt but had been conditioned to doubt. That evening, my father called. His voice sounded different, subdued, almost hesitant. "We need to talk," he said. "All of us. At the house tomorrow morning." "I'll be there," I promised. The next day dawned clear and bright, a contrast to the emotional storm brewing inside me. When I arrived at my parents' house, my house, legally speaking, everyone was already gathered in the living room. My parents, Hannah, Tyler, and Tyler's parents. "Thank you for coming," my father said formally as I took a seat. "We have some things to say." My mother was clutching a tissue, her eyes red. "Hannah and Tyler have shared some hard truths with us," my father continued, "about how we've treated you over the years. And Gordon and Julia have been explaining some things to us as well," Frank Williams added, "about the financial situation and the house." My father cleared his throat. "The truth is, Courtney, we've been unfair to you for a long time." Coming from my proud father, this halting admission was extraordinary. When your mother and I were facing bankruptcy 3 years ago, we were ashamed. We'd always prided ourselves on being self-sufficient, on not needing help from anyone. The thought of our own child having to rescue us was humiliating. That doesn't explain decades of treating Courtney as less important than Hannah, Tyler's mother pointed out gently, but firmly. My mother spoke up, her voice trembling. I think we've always been intimidated by Courtney. He was always so bright, so capable, so independent. Hannah needed us more obviously. It was easier to pour our energy where we felt useful. That's not an excuse, my father added quickly. Just an explanation we've been coming to terms with ourselves. Hannah was watching me carefully, gauging my reaction to these revelations. We never meant to make you feel unimportant, my mother said tearfully. But Hannah has helped us see that intention doesn't matter as much as impact. And the impact on you has been terrible. What happens now? I asked, addressing the practical question that hung in the air. We're selling the house, my father said simply. This was the last thing I expected. What? No, that's not necessary. It is, he insisted. We can't continue living in a home that rightfully belongs to you, that you've been paying for without our knowledge. We've found a smaller place we can afford on our own. And the wedding? I asked, looking at Hannah. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. We're having a small ceremony in Tyler's parents' garden next month. Just immediate family and a few close friends. The kind of wedding we should have planned from the beginning. You're invited, of course, Tyler added. In fact, Hannah was hoping you'd agree to be her man of honor. I looked at my sister in surprise. If you want to, she said hesitantly. I understand if you don't. The gesture meant more than she could know. A public acknowledgement of my importance in her life. I'd be honored, I said sincerely. My father stood up, visibly struggling with what he needed to say next. There's one more thing, he said. The wedding venue. We've lost the deposit, and we owe Tyler's parents for what they contributed. I'll cover it, I said immediately. No, my father said firmly. This is our responsibility. We've listed the boat for sale, and Julia is selling her jewelry collection. We created this mess, and we'll fix it. It was the first time I could remember my father taking full responsibility for a mistake without qualification or excuse. We know it doesn't make up for years of failing you as parents, my mother added. But it's a start. We want to try to rebuild our relationship, Courtney. If you'll give us the chance. 4 weeks later, Hannah and Tyler were married in the Williams' beautiful garden. The ceremony was intimate, heartfelt, and authentic in a way the original plans never could have been. Hannah glowed with genuine happiness rather than staged perfection. Tyler's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes. And when it came time for speeches at the small reception, my father stood up, his hands trembling slightly as he held his notes. I want to thank everyone for being here today to celebrate Hannah and Tyler, he began traditionally. Then he deviated from the expected script. And I especially want to thank my son Courtney, not just for being here today, but for teaching our family an important lesson about honesty, integrity, and true generosity. The guests looked slightly confused, but my father continued. Many of you don't know this, but our family recently went through a difficult time, a reckoning of sorts. We discovered that for years, we had been taking Courtney's support for granted, both emotionally and practically. We had failed to see his value, his contributions, and his love for this family. He turned to look directly at me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I am more proud of my son than I can express, he said, his voice breaking slightly. His success, his integrity, and his willingness to forgive us when we didn't deserve it. Hannah is lucky to have him as a brother, and her mother and I are blessed to have him as a son, even if we haven't always shown it. The silence that followed was profound, the guests sensing they were witnessing something deeply personal and transformative. To Hannah and Tyler, my father concluded, raising his glass. And to new beginnings for all of us. As the glasses clinked around me, Hannah reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. 1 year later, we gathered for Thanksgiving at my new house, a spacious place with plenty of room for family gatherings. My parents had downsized to a comfortable condo they could afford on their own, insisting on financial independence despite my offers of help. The sale of their house, my house, had allowed them to pay off all debts and start fresh. Hannah and Tyler arrived first, bringing a homemade pumpkin pie and news of their expected first child. My parents came shortly after, my mother carrying her traditional cranberry relish, my father looking more relaxed than I had seen him in years. The change in our family dynamic hadn't happened overnight. There had been difficult conversations, painful revelations, and occasional setbacks. My father still sometimes fell into old patterns of dismissing my achievements, but now Hannah or my mother would gently call him on it. My mother had taken to calling me weekly, genuinely asking about my work and my life in a way she never had before. For my part, I was learning to be more open, to share my successes and challenges without fear of rejection. I had started dating again, bringing Allison to family gatherings where she was warmly welcomed. As we sat around the table that Thanksgiving, the contrast with family dinners of the past was striking. The conversation flowed naturally, with everyone given space to speak and be heard. My father asked thoughtful questions about my recent promotion. My mother proudly showed photos of us to her friends. "I have an announcement," I said as we finished the main course. All eyes turned to me expectantly. Tech Solutions is expanding to Europe, and they've asked me to head up the new division. It would mean relocating to London for at least 2 years. In the past, such news would have been met with dismissal or indifference. Today, my family erupted in congratulations. "That's incredible, Courtney!" Hannah exclaimed. "What an opportunity!" my father said proudly. "When would you start?" "March next year," I replied. And there's more. Allison has been offered a position at the London office of her firm. We're going together. More congratulations followed. Genuine excitement for this new chapter in my life. "We'll miss you terribly," my mother said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "But we couldn't be prouder. I was thinking," I added hesitantly, "that maybe you all could come visit next summer. I'll have a place with a guest room, and there's so much I'd love to show you." The invitation hung in the air, significant beyond the simple words. It was an extension of trust, an opening of my life to my family in a way I had never felt safe doing before. "We would love that," my father said, his voice thick with emotion. "More than you know." Later, as we cleared the dishes together, my father pulled me aside. "I need to say something," he began awkwardly. "Something I should have said a long time ago." I waited, giving him space to find the words. "I'm sorry, Courtney. Truly sorry. For all the years I failed to see you, really see you. For making you feel less than. For not celebrating the remarkable man you've become." The simple apology, so long awaited, washed over me like healing water. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means a lot. I was wrong about so many things," he continued, "but especially about what makes a person valuable. I measured success in such limited ways. I missed the integrity, the generosity, the heart that makes you who you are." We stood in silence for a moment, decades of misunderstanding finally beginning to mend. "I never wanted things to fall apart the way they did," I admitted. "With the house, the wedding, it needed to happen," my father said firmly. "We needed that wake-up call. Your mother and I have talked about this a lot. That crisis forced us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for years." "And are you happier now?" I asked. He smiled. The genuine smile that had been so rare in my childhood. "Happier than I've been in years. The condo is easier to maintain. I'm working part-time at the hardware store, something I enjoy without the stress of running my own company. Your mother has made new friends in the building. And most importantly, we have our family whole, properly whole, for the first time." As we rejoined the others in the living room, I looked around at these people who had caused me so much pain, yet were inextricably part of my identity and my heart. Hannah, now expecting a child of her own, perhaps finally understanding the complexities of family love. My mother, working to express the affection she had always felt, but rarely shown. My father, humbled but somehow more authentic than he had ever been. The path to this moment had been brutal honesty, painful confrontation, and the courage to stand up for my own worth. It had nearly cost me my family. Instead, it had transformed us all. As the evening wound down, and everyone prepared to leave, Hannah pulled me into a tight hug. "I never properly thanked you," she whispered, "for being the one brave enough to break the cycle, for loving us enough to risk losing us." "We're family," I said simply. "Imperfect, complicated, but still family. The best kind." She agreed with a smile. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves and those we love is the truth, however difficult it may be to hear. Standing up for your own worth isn't selfish, it's necessary. And sometimes, the family we rebuild from honest foundations is stronger than the one built on comfortable illusions. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself within your own family? How did you balance self-respect with family loyalty? Comment below with your experiences. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the complex dynamics of family relationships. Share with someone who might need encouragement to speak their truth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to value yourself, even when those closest to you struggle to do the same.